where we would want to hear a story of a friend of ours who have definitely gone through a life-changing journey. My name is Michael Teo from Thriving Talents. I will be your co-host for our session here today. Joining me is my good friend and now comrade as well, our storytelling expert, presentation expert, Fatia. Fatia, how are you doing today? Salam Ramadan.
Salam Ramadan. Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, so it has been 11 days of puasa. Very fast,
Very
Yeah,
fast, very fast. And then I think today, what is interesting is that, of course, both of us are being hosted by our friend Aziph Mustapha. But
true.
he is our special guest today, pula, right?
Yes, we are apa tu kita host our host je. But itulah yang I jealousnya. In Malaysia, I dah 11 hari puasa but I fast in Malaysia. But our friend here, he start fasting in Mecca and that's the best place. I really envy him lah for
Yes.
being there and start his Ramadan there.
Yes, and for me personally, though, Fatia, I am of a different faith. I am Buddhist, but I
Okay.
think being brought up here in Malaysia, it has taught me to really appreciate,
Yeah.
to respect, and to embrace our multicultural, multi-religious society. And
True.
the Puasa month, the Ramadan month, the fasting month has always I would say piqued my curiosity, like how did you all do it, and especially today when we're talking about life-changing journeys, where we're going to invite Azip up in a moment's time.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, I love documentaries, I love history, and I do Google, I do go to YouTube to study more about the Holy Land of Mecca and to learn a little bit more about Umrah, like what is it all about. And I
Yeah.
believe today Azip will be here to share his perspective with us. But I think for all of you on LinkedIn who's part of this conversation right now, today is going to be very intimate. Like for me, I would love to understand, why did Azip, you know, choose this time to go for Umrah? Is it because there was a calling? Is it because he got some signs? And how was his entire experience? That is what I'll be looking forward to. What about yourself, Atia? What will you be looking forward?
Yeah, for me, I wanted to know what's the difference between doing Umrah before COVID and after COVID, because a lot of things has changed. Yeah, so that is what I'm curious about. How does it feel to do Umrah post COVID, and in between there's some limits of number of people who can be in the area, but now there are more people. So I guess just for the past 2 years, the way people do Umrah has changed, and that is something that I'm really excited about talking to Aziph. So we can't wait to talk to him. So probably we should, Michael, have
Yes,
him
yes,
in the
yes.
room now.
Let us all welcome Azip Mustapha.
Woohoo! I think jambang ni makin merah lah balik Umrah ni.
I bought inai or henna from Mecca.
Nice.
I'm trying to share my screen here. I'm looking at my LinkedIn. It doesn't seem that they're showing. I don't know if any of you can access. So if you're viewing now, if you can see both hosts, they're saying. But cannot see the slide that I'm showing you. Can any of you see this? If you can hear me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now showing a slide.
I can see your background. The background.
See the background,
Yeah.
Yeah, but on are you opening your LinkedIn? Can you see it? So to the audience, can you see the background?
Yeah, not really. It's actually there's some animation, the purple animation.
Yeah, right, but not this like the life-changing journey slide that we see here.
But now it's showing. I think now it's showing.
Okay, excellent. All right, so before I go then and start answering your questions, maybe I can just play the short promo video for our audience. Yeah, next.
Let's give it a try. Yeah, there you go. That persistency over there.
No, seriously, what is this place?
This is heaven.
review of the trip. Right. So thanks, Mike and Fatia, for having me on my own show. But
good.
really appreciate you guys doing this for me. I really just wanted to share my story, but I wanted to do more of a Q&A. Now we have separate perspectives. Yeah, we have Fatia, who is a Muslim, and Mike here, who is a Buddhist. Maybe we have different perspectives, and obviously from the audience as well. And we welcome any questions from the audience on this trip. So ask away.
Aziph, I would like to start first. Aziph, what is Umrah? If you could share with me, and that is related to my second question, and that is, how did you get the sign that you need to do it like now, like this recent trip? Like, was there a divine message that you felt? So tell us, please, enlighten us so that we know the signs. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Mike. So Umrah is, many people are familiar with the Hajj, and the Hajj is the main pilgrimage that every Muslim must do once in their life if they can afford it. So it's like a kind of, there's a conditional requirement. It's mandatory if you can afford it. So the Hajj, and some people say the Umrah as well, are one of the 5 pillars of Islam. So we need to go back to the pillars. What is it that makes you a Muslim? And one, you must profess your faith. So you must say that Allah is God, is the only one worthy of worship, and that Muhammad is his messenger. That's the Shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. You say that, you're a Muslim. And then you have to establish regular prayers, salah. And as a Malaysian, obviously, Mike, you're very familiar with us going off 5 times a day to do our prayers. So 5 times a day of prayers is a must. You must pay your zakah. And now during this month of Ramadan, we are all paying our zakat is a tip, or is an alms, is a tax that all Muslims pay. Regardless of your situation, we pay the fitrah, zakat fitrah, which is paid before the first of Hari Raya. So before the end of Ramadan, every Muslim around the world, 1.7 billion of us, will pay this zakat. Or this tax. So that is used to help the poor and build infrastructure, and there's categories of people that are eligible to accept this money. So that is our social, development kind of fund for all Muslims. So that's the third one. The fourth is the Hajj or Umrah, and or Umrah once in your lifetime if you can afford it. And what am I missing, Fatia? Oh, fasting, obviously. So fasting in the month of Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars. So the Hajj is the major pilgrimage, right? You do that, it lasts up to 40 days. So it's very intense. There's a lot of rituals involved. And the Umrah is somewhat like the Hajj, because the only place you can do it is in Makkah, in the sacred mosque, in the Masjid al-Haram, we call the place, and in front of the Kaaba. So that you must go there. But unlike the Hajj, which only happens in 10 days in a certain month in the Islamic calendar, the Umrah can happen anytime. So anytime in the world, anytime of the year, you can pick up and go and do your Umrah. So most people feel that the Umrah is not mandatory, or it's not obligatory. It's something it's good to do. Obviously, it's an act of worship that is very recommended to do. But many scholars also believe that it is mandatory because it's mentioned in the Quran, Hajj and Umrah. And in the hadith of Nabi Muhammad SAW, he also mentions Hajj and Umrah together in one sentence. So many people take that to believe that at least once in your lifetime, you must go and do your Umrah. But typically, Mike, because we're already doing our Hajj in Makkah, you do your Umrah during that time as well. So that's covered 2 in 1 lah. So if you go to your Hajj, you will already do your Umrah as well. So that's the thing. So your second question, was there a big sign? Not really lah. Actually, I told my wife long time ago, I said, I think it was after we came back from Disneyland or something. I said, I don't feel good lah. We really should be traveling to Makkah first before we go on any other vacation. So I think since then, this was like 5 years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I told her, before we go on any other foreign vacation, let's go to Makkah, Medina. And to be super duper honest, I don't know if she's listening, but she was kind of afraid to go. And I think many Muslims feel the same because there's this takut, there's this fear of going because all of these fantastical stories of, oh, if sinners go, then they'll be immediately feel the repercussions from God himself, be struck by lightning. It's as if
Wow.
like that, people are scared to go. And also people are scared to go because my wife has never gone. She's worried that it's so complex. She doesn't have enough knowledge. She doesn't have enough preparation spiritually
Yeah.
to go, which is all false. And now she understands because actually the rites are very simple. To doing Umrah is very simple. And maybe some people get repercussions, but we are all sinners, right? Nobody is perfect. Nobody
That's right.
alive is perfect. We all make mistakes.
That's
So
right.
there shouldn't be any of that fear. If any of you are listening and you have that fear of going, don't. It's an easy thing. Actually, Umrah comprises of four things only, Mike. Number one is you must wear the ihram. I don't know if you've seen pictures of people in Hajj. It's two pieces of cloth,
Yes.
white cloth that men wear, and this is only applicable to men. But ihram is more than that. Ihram is actually a state of mind. So you need
Right.
to enter into this state where you have the intention to do this sacred ritual.
Yes.
And there's some things that are disallowed to you, which are allowed normally. So like some of them are simple, like you can't cut your nails, so you can't pluck your hair, and things like that. So normally these are allowed, but when you enter into the state of ihram, you cannot do these things. You cannot be intimate with your wife, for example.
Yeah.
So there are like 14 things that you cannot do while you're in the state of ihram. So that's the first thing. Then you travel towards the house. We call it Baitullah, which literally means the house of God. We don't literally think God lives there, but it's honorific that we place upon the Kaaba, the cube. Kaaba in Arabic simply means the cube. It's the cube. It's the black cube inside this masjid. So the second thing is, as you travel there, you pass a boundary, and this boundary is called the miqat. So once you pass the miqat, you enter into the state of ihram. Then once you get there, you circumambulate, I think is the term. You go around the Kaaba 7 times. So that's called the tawaf. That's the second thing you do. Then you go onto this hill, or it used to be, it's called Mount Safa, and then you travel back and forth 7 times between Mount Safa and Mount Marwa. You go back 7 times. That will take about an hour, maybe. It's 5 to 6 kilometers all in. And then at the last, you cut your hair. Called tahlul. There you go. So I shaved off my hair, and my son's hair as well. And my wife cut a bit of her hair, like a knuckles length, and that's it. Then you're out of your state of ihram, and all of the things that you couldn't do while you're in ihram, you can do already. And that completes one umrah. So done. That would take at the most 2 hours, depending on how much time you spend, So that's umrah. But Hajj, for example, will take 10 days at least. So that's the difference between Hajj and umrah.
Right. Thank you so much, Azib. I believe, as you mentioned, God or the universe, whatever our viewers believe in, we are living in a forgiving world, forgiving universe. So at the end of the day, I think there's always that intention to hope that we can be perfect. But I think even in today, if we look at leadership practices, right, people are appreciating leaders who are more vulnerable because we know change is constant. And because of change, perfect things will become imperfect. So I think as leaders, we develop the way to forgive others, to look at other people's perspective. And for this case, though, I really want to applaud you, Azib, for guiding your family, for giving them the confidence to actually fulfill this, I would say, religious ritual, which is so meaningful. And I think for the family to learn some powerful lessons that would make us happier, that would make us lead a life that is more peaceful, more forgiving as well. Thank you, Azib. And it's great that you have had that discipline, yeah, after coming back from Disneyland. And you mentioned you set a goal. You would like to go to Mecca to fulfill your religious, if I may use the word obligation. I don't like to use the word obligation here because it's not really an obligation. It's really, I think it's such a meaningful thing if Muslims can do it, right? So it's not an obligation. It's a duty filled with meaningful bliss, I would say. Yeah.
To us, it's really an investment because and in the Quran, it's mentioned several times of trade. So, and Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also mentions many times, shall I show you a trade? So, in our mindset, it's really an investment for the future, and our future is the afterlife, right?
Yes.
So, and it's definitely a sacrifice because you need to spend money, you need to spend time. I mean, this is probably the longest I've been away from work, 14 days. So it's all of these sacrifices that you need to make in order to get something bigger and something higher. And it was amazing, Mike, because we could see people from all around the world. I mean, people that you could tell have very hard lives. So they must have, it was probably their life savings, right? Just to get there and buy the plane ticket and book a hotel and go there. And, you know, it really humbles me when I see all of that in the Holy Land.
Powerful. Thank you, Aziph. Aziph, I will now pass the stage over to Fatia. Go ahead, please, Fatia.
Well, actually, I have a lot to ask. You know, when you show the videos and then you miss the place. You know, the Holy Land is always a place that you miss. Like before, when you go, you go with a lot of excitement, and not just excitement, a positive excitement, but you don't know what to expect, right? But when you're there and you're so close to the place that we. Kaaba is basically our qiblat, right? When we pray, that is the direction that we're heading to. So imagine being close, like right in front of that building. You know, it's like Aziph said, like it's very humbling experience. Now, you know, I miss it so much that I also, you know, would love to go. But anyway, I have a lot of questions, but now one of the questions that I want to ask Aziph is your preparation, your own preparation to go, because preparation to go for Umrah can be physical, can be spiritual, you know, everything. So how do you prepare? And now it's also post-COVID, right? I think the preparation has also changed. So for the benefit of our friends who has an intention to go in this era, maybe you could share what have you prepared and anything that involve around the preparation of going to the Holy Land. And for the audience, please, you are also welcome to ask questions. So please do so.
Thanks so much for that question. Quick shout out to Marie Gwenda, who says she's not a Muslim but is finding this insightful. Thanks so much for coming on board, Marie. So great question. I think Mike also alluded to this. How did I decide to go? It was actually very quick, Mike. So you know, kadang rezeki datang kan. So when abundance comes, we say, okay, let's forget about the things that we want to buy, the toys we want to have, and all of that, and just let's put aside some money and let's just go. So I told, and because my wife actually brought it up, so she was the one, this lady who was afraid. Suddenly she mentioned a little bit. I said, maybe it's time we should go. I took that as a visa pass. So I went to the travel agent. I looked around. I did a lot of research on who should take me there because I thought that was very important. I decided on one after getting lots of recommendations. I paid the money and I told her, okay, I paid already. We're just waiting for the date. And then what happened was we were supposed to go on the 17th of March. And a week prior, she contracted COVID. Thankfully, it was Omicron, which wasn't very severe, but she was isolated for that time. Yeah. She would have cleared her quarantine by the date we would have to go, but then obviously there's these visa requirements. You need to prove your status on MySejahtera, all of those sort of things. So we decided to delay for 1 week, which turned out to be a huge blessing because we managed to experience Ramadan, the start of Ramadan in Makkah, which was really, really beautiful. And then we managed to go to our trip led by a very distinguished scholar. His name is Habib Najamuddin. Habib Najamuddin is a great Islamic teacher. He traces his lineage, what we call them Habib, all the way up to the Prophet Muhammad. So he can trace his ancestry all the way up there. And he's very learned. And when he tells us stories, every place that we went, because it's such a historical place, right? Every place we stopped had historical significance. And this man would just rattle off names and dates and stories from the top of his mind, and we would just be in awe. and we just be crying, and we just couldn't believe, we had that opportunity to be with him.
Yeah.
So it was such a blessing. Anyway, in preparation, one of the tips I probably give people is that exercise before you go. It is strenuous. It's physically strenuous. On average, my phone tells me we walked 10 kilometers a day while we were there. So when we track our steps, then it is 10K. So if you're not used to walking 10K, you better get used to walking 10K. And what I did with my son, unfortunately, my wife also has plantar fasciitis, so her soles of her feet hurt even when
Right.
she walks. So she didn't go on these walks that every morning my son and I would do
Yeah.
around the neighborhood, 2-3 kilometers. At least get yourself used to moving. So that's one of the preparations. Obviously, time-wise, I tried to prepare my family because I had been a few times. So I know what the routine is over there. Everything is centered around worship night.
Yes.
So everything, your day is centered around the times of prayer, the
Yes.
trip you need to do. Subuh over there, the first prayer is called at 5 a.m. And the first azan is 4 a.m., which means I wake up at 3 a.m. and then I get showered and prepared, and I wake up my wife, and then she gets prepared. I wake up my son. So by 4, a little bit after 4, we start walking to the mosque already. So one of the things that we need to prepare ourselves is this new schedule, right? Your body is not used to it.
Yeah.
So the week prior, I attempted to do that. I woke them up in the middle of the night. I said, okay, let's do some prayers, night prayers. We walked together to the nearby surau near my house in the morning for morning prayers, just to get them used to this new routine. So that is part of the preparation we had. I don't know if you can see the some of the pictures, but I don't think so. But packing was a revelation. We decided to go, Fatia, and pack the three of us, our clothes for the day in sealable bags. So we were there for 14 days. We had 14 plastic bags with 3 sets of clothes in it to really reduce the amount of time you have to dig through your clothes and decide on what to wear. So we had decided prior. So every night we take one plastic out, and in the morning we just open it and put on our clothes. There's no more discussion, no more hunting. That really made things simple. However, it made our bags a bit heavier lah, because you need to bring a lot more clothes. There was no recycling of clothes. There was no washing, laundry, and all that. So that's part of the preparation. And one great question from
Yes. Shafiq.
Shafiq. Yeah. So Shafiq is asking. Let me just read it here.
How do you mentally prepare for the journey, Azib? I'm a Muslim and I do have the same doubts where I keep asking myself whether am I worthy? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. And my wife really went through that. I didn't so much because I had gone, I believe, 5 times to do my Umrah before this. But the interesting thing is, this was the first time I went with a proper travel agent. Well, second time. The first time I was 16 years old, and it was just me and my late mom. My dad couldn't make it for some reason, so he had bought the tickets for me and my mom, and the two of us went when I was 16, and that was with a travel agent. But since then, I had the good fortune to have meetings in either Riyadh or Jeddah or Dubai or somewhere near, and I would make it a point to extend the trip, to go to Makkah from that nearby. But that was really me, myself and I, backpack and not do it on my own. So this time I had the pleasure of having everything taken care of for me, which was great. 3 meals a day, ustaz, leaders to take us through the worship, explanation every step of the way. So it was excellent. So in terms of me, Shafiq, preparing myself, it's really, one of the reasons we go for Umrah, Mike, is to try and get as many of our sins forgiven, right? So we do all of these acts of worship in the hope that the Almighty will forgive our sins. So one of the things we do is, I had a little notebook, and we wrote down things that, so I trained my son to do this as well. We wrote down things that we are not so happy with that we've done before. What are the things that, we feel that we failed at, or we didn't live up to the values, or we didn't reach the standards that we hold ourselves against? So he wrote a bunch of things. I wrote obviously a lot more because I've been alive a lot longer, and maybe I've done a lot of bad things as well. So I wrote those things down. And what it does to you is it reflects, is this who I am? And can I get away from this? And what do I need to do to seek forgiveness for this? So that really puts you in the mood. I really need to go. I want to go now, right? So you get excited about going because you know that there's a lot of blessings in the place we go. We believe that. One of the things that our Prophet taught us was that everything done in the forbidden land, the holy lands are actually called Tanah Haram. And you may know the term haram, Mike, and many people in this region see it as a negative thing, right? It's haram. We know some things are halal, some
Forbidden.
but we call the lands in Medina and Makkah as Tanah Haram, the forbidden lands. And what that means is there's nothing negative about it. It means that some of the things that are permissible outside of those are impermissible inside the holy lands.
Right.
It's not permissible to wage war. It's not permissible to do to fight. And as a pilgrim, there's, like I explained this, when you're in the state of ihram, you cannot do certain things. So that's why it's called the haram, and why the mosque, the sacred mosque, is called the forbidden mosque. It's called the Masjid al-Haram because of that. So that's part of my preparation, and really thanks so much for the question, Shafiq. But if you are in any doubt, don't worry at all. Just go. And somebody's mentioning about invitation, Mike, and what we call the pilgrims as guests of Allah.
Yes.
Rahman, the guest of the most gracious. So in order to be a guest, you must get an invitation, right?
Yes.
And so we believe if you're not invited, you're not invited. You're not going to go. If you've paid your money, you've packed your bags, if you're not invited, you're not going to go. Your plane, something's going to happen to your plane, something's going to happen to your car, you'll miss your flight. But if you're invited, regardless of whatever situation is happening in your life, you're going to be there. And interestingly enough, one of my colleagues here in Selcom, she is a single mom. She has a tough time, and she really wanted to go, but she couldn't afford it. And you know what happened, Mike? Like a couple of weeks before the Hajj season, and she had already had an application and all that, but she just couldn't afford to go swasta, right? Because you can go with Tabung Haji, but of course there's a long waiting list, or you can pay a travel agent to take you, which is 70, 80, could be up to 100,000 ringgit. A man paid her way 80,000 ringgit. A man she didn't know. She didn't know of this person. She met him there in front of the Kaaba, and the guy just paid her way. So that is like, if you get the invitation, you're gonna go, man. So,
That's a miracle.
So
Aziph,
yeah.
writing from that question, before I pass it over to Fatia, since that we're talking about it, I know it was asked by Win Mazlan, and she asked a question that I'm also curiously waiting to hear from you. She said, hey Aziph, share with us, how do you truly feel when you were there? Like, what was the atmosphere like? So what was the atmosphere like, Aziph? Like, can you describe it? I know it's hard to describe, but just enlighten us. How was it like?
Okay, I'll talk about Makkah because the entire trip actually is two separate cities. There's the city of Medina, where really is the cradle of the Islamic civilization, where our Prophet, peace be upon him, took the hijrah, is why we call it the hijrah, from Makkah. He traveled, I think it's 200, 300 kilometers in the desert by walking on camel, on horseback, to Medina. And there he established the Islamic State. So there's two separate feelings there, obviously. But in front of the Kaaba, it's undescribable. You just cannot describe, because like Fatia mentioned, this is the direction of our salah. We do it 5 times a day. We know we're facing the Kaaba. When we're standing on this carpet or by the side of the road or in the surau in your office, when you're standing, you're actually facing the Kaaba. And then to actually be there is just super undescribable. I mean, all around me, people were just crying. You just can't hold it in because it's just totally amazing. And in our tradition, Mike, we believe that the sacred house, it's also called the ancient house in the Quran, was built by the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam himself. And all Abrahamic faiths, the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, we share, all of the same prophets, really. So Nabi Ibrahim, mentioned in the Quran, mentioned in the Bible, mentioned in the Torah of the Jews, is the same man. And his son Ishmael in the Bible, or Ismail in the Quran, helped him build this house, helped him build this cube, the Kaaba, and became the center of worship. So, it's just the vibes is, you can't beat it, Lavin. You can't beat the vibe that you get as soon as you step into the city. As we approach the city, Mike, one of the rituals or practices that we do, even on the bus, is there's this chant that is called the Talbiyah, and it's Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, which literally translates to "Here I am, Lord, here I am." So throughout the journey, and it's like 200 kilometers, we'll be chanting this. And as we enter the city of Makkah, you can see this clock tower. I don't know if you've seen the picture. It's massive. The world's biggest clock is on this tower that's right next to the mosque. So you can see that from miles away. And then the chant gets louder, and everybody on the bus is so excited. And we keep chanting, "We're here, I'm here, I'm here." So we're answering your call, we are here. And as we enter the mosque for the first time, and you walk down, right now there's an escalator, and you walk down the escalator and you're on this plaza, and the Kaaba is right in the middle of it. And it's really indescribable. And right now, Fatia was mentioning about COVID. One of the restrictions is they limit the people who are able to go near the Kaaba on this plaza, only people who are doing Umrah, because obviously there's hundreds of thousands of people in this mosque, man. It's a massive, it's a huge structure. But the people who are allowed to go and circumambulate the Kaaba is only the people in the white clothes, only people in Ihram, just to limit the numbers. So as you walk down and you go there, it's not that packed, so you can actually go up close to the building. Typically, when I used to go before COVID, you can actually touch the building. Right now, there's velvet ropes all around, so they keep there's that sort of distance. But it's really super close, and you do that, and it's just amazing.
Wow. Thank you, Aziph. Aziph, I have more questions, but I'll reserve that for later. Back to you, Fatia. Go ahead.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So can you still pray in Hajar Ismail area?
Not really.
No, cannot go inside, is it?
Yeah. That's totally closed off. You can always the outside. Kalau we want to solat behind the Maqam Ibrahim, the station of Ibrahim, we have to do it really far outside of the circle. But we did manage to, sit. And I was talking to you about this notebook I had. So in the notebook, I had pages and pages of prayers that I wanted to make. Many for myself, some for my friends who had written to me, "Please pray this for me, pray that for me." So pages and pages. So to save time, I kind of took pictures of that page in front of the Kaaba and I sent them off. Obviously I prayed for that, but just as a reminder to myself and a message to the people who asked for these prayers, I did it in front of the Kaaba. And so we managed to sit. Another tip I want to give to people who've never been there, and I didn't used to do this, but I read it online somewhere. They said bring a umbrella, which I did. It was the umbrella that is in my bag every day because I commute. So this foldable umbrella was essential because if you're there during the day, the sun is not like here. I don't know what the difference is. The temperature may be not as hot even as it is here, but the sun rays are like, wow. So if we had this and the three of us could sit under it and spend a moment, and it was really, and we actually used this when we were doing it during the daytime. We had this open and the three of us walked under it in the 7 circuits. So
Wow.
that's a good
Okay.
that's a good tip.
That is a good practice, writing down. I think that the next time I go, inshallah, I want to do that as well. Write it down, and then read it and really say sorry. Betul-betul. I think it's easier to do taubah when you're like in front of it because you can
Yeah,
feel it. That feeling too
exactly.
cannot
But
imagine
sometimes
lah.
you get
Yeah.
overwhelmed, right? Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
only there for that period. Then after you're done, then you have to move on to your next
Betul.
rituals. So if you
Betul.
don't have it prepared beforehand, you may end up not knowing what to say, or you may
Betul.
be already, and then you don't know what else. Then
Betul.
you may get distracted and all of that. But if you have it
Correct.
prepared, it's really easy. My wife, one of her worries, and one of the worries of many, I think, Malays as well, because when you go to this training or cruises, or you buy the book, they will tell you first circuit, here's this long
Ya,
prayer.
betul.
And none of us memorize that, right? It's so
Exactly. Exactly.
because you're so worried. Hey, I don't memorize. I don't know what it means.
Betul.
Then you risau. You worry. Hey, maybe I shouldn't.
Betul.
Actually, you don't have to say any of that. None of it is
Correct.
prescribed. The Prophet taught us one short prayer. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil
Betul.
akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar, which is
Betul.
the mother of all prayers, man, because it says, "Give me the best in this world, give me the best in the next world, and
Yeah.
keep me away from hellfire." That's all.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
encompasses everything you need. There's nothing else you need.
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's a
Wow.
certain
Very powerful.
corner. So it's a cube, right? So there's one corner called the corner of Yemeni. So Rukun Yemeni to the corner where the Hajaratul Aswad is, the black
That's what,
stone
yeah.
is located. That, if you're very near to the Kaaba, is only a few steps. And the
Yep.
only prayer prescribed by our Prophet was that, the short prayer between those two. The rest of the way, say whatever is in your heart, whatever you need, whatever you require for you. And you don't need to read anybody else's prayer. So it's very easy, guys. You just
Okay.
say whatever is in your heart. But again, if you're prepared, at least you have that. If you're not prepared, suddenly you blur, you're overwhelmed, and you just don't know what to do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There's one question from Nurul Alia. What's the
Yes.
biggest difference that you felt going from Umrah as a 16 years old and now? I like that question, but
I like that too.
after you answer that, maybe Azif, what I really want to know is, do share with us your experience Ramadan in
Exactly.
Mecca, because
Yeah.
I dekat sini bangun sahur and then buka puasa, but in Mecca I'm so sure you have a different ritual and different experience. So please do share.
MashaAllah, yes. But thanks for the question, Nurul and Nurul Alia.
Yes.
Obviously, the difference is when you're young, you maybe the level of understanding is a little bit less. So I love the fact that I went with my mom. It was a really incredible bonding opportunity for me. And I didn't really know much about the religion. So I just did what people told me to do. Lah. So you go there. I think at that time when I was 16, what I really remember is that on the way out, because your last ritual at Makkah in the Holy Mosque is to do the farewell tawaf. So you do 7 circuits. It's called tawaf wada, and it's really emotional because you know you're leaving after that. And even as a young boy, I couldn't move. After doing that, I just sat down in front of the Kaaba, I just broke down. So they were actually looking for me. So the tour group was, where is Aziph, right? So finally my mom found me. I was in front of the Kaaba, I was just in tears. And as a young guy, you don't even know, you've not done that much. You haven't even experienced life, right? But I felt that power and I felt that energy, and it was just overwhelming for me. And that's what I remembered for that trip. For this trip, obviously, I've experienced a lot more. I'm 54 years old this year. I have done many things, and I am bringing my family with me, which is a really incredible experience as well, because the people you love the most are with you. And you get to explain to them, and you get to go through this together. My son speaks exclusively English, unfortunately, Mike. So when all of the teachers were telling all these stories, I had to basically translate real time in his ear, word for word, whatever was going on, because if not, he'd just get distracted and he'd just go elsewhere. And he really enjoyed the stories. So I was known among the group. There was quite a few of us. Our group was 96 people, I believe. and in 3 buses. So every time we stopped, I'd be the guy who was translating. Everybody knew me because it's like, oh, this is the translator guy, because I'd be speaking in English to my son. So that was the difference. The place has changed. Ain. Obviously, there's so much development. If you've gone 30 years ago when I went, it's a totally different thing. There were so many small markets surrounding the masjid before. So if you go through this, there's this special spice market, and you go to this different market, the souks, they call it in Arabic. And none of those exist anymore. They're just high-rise 5-star hotels across from masjid.
There's a Marriott, right? Is that like a Marriott or a Hilton there, right? Which is like the landmark, right? It's
Anything
like
you want. There's all these hotels. My son, after having Arabic food all this while, suddenly saw a McDonald's. He wanted the McDonald's right in front of Masjid Al Haram. There's a McDonald's, there's a KFC, there's Starbucks. So whatever you want is there. So that is totally different from before and now. Great
Aziph.
question. Thanks.
Aziph,
Sure.
I have a question before we jump over to Nadia's question, because I love Nadia's question. But my question is, there is a clock tower, right? Which is like the tallest
Biggest-
building there. But apparently it's a hotel, right?
Yeah, and also there's a mall under it, which is somewhat similar to Surya KLCC. There's a big building, and then there's a big mall under it. And it's you step out of the mall, you're in the Holy Mosque. So you're in this plaza, the white marble plaza. That's all part of the mosque. So it's obviously it's very expensive to stay there. And one of the things I was mentioning about pilgrims that we could tell were had a tough life. Many pilgrims were from Indonesia, and I mean, not to be judgmental or anything, but you could kind of tell by how they were dressed and how they were. You could tell that they had a tough life. These guys have tough life, but I can just hard to imagine how they could collect enough funds from the rupiah to pay for the travel agent, and these are the most well prepared Jamaah you can find, because the Indonesians all have matching jackets, they all have the matching bags, they have big scarves, and they're all so well prepared. And it's truly humbling. So when we feel that we don't have enough funds, we don't have enough money to go, come on, man. These guys from Africa, from Indonesia, from India, I don't know how they managed, but they got there. They made it.
It's the willingness, the willpower, as it.
For sure. And you mentioned about the clock tower, yeah? It is a landmark. You can see it from everywhere. The clock itself is, the last time I went, which was like 6 years ago, that's the first time I saw the clock. It's mind-blowing. You cannot imagine a clock that big. It's the world's biggest clock. And yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Aziph, I would like to now just read out Nadia Alias's question. She asks, did you experience any unexpected moment when you were there, like a miracle, like something that happened? If you could share with us any thoughts about that.
Yeah, there's many, but maybe one from when I was 16. So the mosque, as I mentioned, is huge, right? So there's many passageways, there's many doors. So one of the things they teach you is that your hotel is here, memorize the door that goes closest to your hotel, because there's hundreds of doors. So we memorized our door, me and my mom, we know how to get there. But on the way out, this was late at night already, after all the prayers, obviously the mosque is buzzing. It's buzzing 24 hours. There's so many people doing, whatever they need to do there. So we were on our way out to the door. And then one Malaysian lady, if I'm not mistaken, older lady, she was from our tour group. She asked which way to the toilet. And then my mom kind of pointed it out. She said, it's really near. You just go out this corner, and then you will see the path to the toilet. So the old lady left. And then my mom felt really bad. She said, I didn't do the best for this lady. I should have walked her there. I should have held her hand and took her to the toilet. So my mom felt guilty. But then we turned around to head to the door, which we knew where it was. It's over there. We couldn't find it, Mike. We were
Wow.
walking for half an hour. The door just disappeared. I don't know why. We could not find the door. We were walking and walking and walking. We were getting tired already. We couldn't find the
Wow.
way up. And then we were near a stairs, and there was, if I'm not mistaken, there was a blind man walking down the stairs. And I didn't even think. I just grabbed his hand, put it on my shoulder, and I walked the man down. So my mom followed me. Then the man left, and we looked up. There's the door. There's the door to our hotel. We just go out and we're at our hotel already. So that was just mind blowing to me now. So when we're there, we're very aware of these like special people, and they could be angels. We don't know, right? They could have the power. So we're very careful on how we interact with people, obviously. And while we were there, we were at the clock tower food court. Actually, we're having a nice meal, and I was reflecting with my wife. I was saying like, wow, there's just so people from all over the world, right? And we met people, especially from the like Eastern Bloc, the stans, right? Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, all of the stans were there in numbers. Indonesians, obviously, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all of those side of the
Yes.
world. European, I met quite a few people from the UK. But I
Yes.
was telling my mom, I didn't see anyone from China or Japan. And I told my wife, he said, yeah, we didn't see. And then we looked up, coming to the next table is a group of Chinese guys. And one of them looked exactly like you, Mike. I was going to text you, when did you arrive, Mike? Because you look exactly like you. So I went over to the table, I gave salam, I said, Assalamualaikum. I said, brother, I'm Aziph from Malaysia. Where are you from? He said, they're all from China. So I said, Umrah, Mabrur, inshallah. I said, may your Umrah be accepted. And I'm so happy to see you. I told them, and they said, they didn't know who I was, obviously, but I was really so happy to see them. I said, I just said I didn't see anyone from China, and there's this whole table of Chinese men.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting. One of the stories one of the ustads told me, this was in Medina. So in Medina, there's the Mosque of the Nabi. We call it the Prophet's Mosque, right? Again, a huge structure that was built where the Prophet used to live, where he is buried till today. That his grave is in there, where the first mosque built, where he gave sermons and all, is still there. So one of his sayings or hadith, right, is that from my house to my pulpit, my mimbar, is called the Rauda. It's a slice of heaven. It's basically heaven on earth. So we take things quite literally because we believe that nothing the Prophet says is from himself. Everything that comes out of his mouth is from the Lord himself, directly through him. So he's the vessel that conveys this story to us. So when he says it's part of heaven, Mike, it's part of heaven. There's no question about it. As the faithful, that's what we believe. So now with COVID, Fatia, you need to book a slot to get in there.
Right.
It used to be when I was there 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it's a mad rush. They open the gates and everybody runs because you want to get, to that spot. But now, thankfully, it's more organized. So there's an app called Tawakkalna. You book the date and time to get there. Our travel agents who are very professional did all of that for us. So there was a time for us to go. There's a lot of waiting in line actually, because you have to wait in line outside for them to check your app. Then there's a line with barricades that you stand in close to an hour. I think we stood there, and this was at about midnight. And then we got in. There's a sitting area that you can pray, but you sit around until they tell you it's your turn to get inside. So anyway, our ustaz took that opportunity to tell us stories. So he said one of the previous Jama'ah group that he brought, there was a man, he came single. I think he was a lawyer or an architect, or he was an architect. And he was kind of shaking. So he was like, he didn't know. It seemed that he was ill, so they were worried. They wanted to get a doctor. But when asked, he said, I dreamt this exact scene last night. So I
Wow.
saw the Ustad giving a lecture here. I saw myself at this pillar where I am now shaking. I saw all of that. And what happened next is just mind blowing because the guards there are very stern, Mike. That's one of the things my wife couldn't handle. But you know, they're handling hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. They need to put things in order. So they're very
Correct.
stern. So one of these guys looked to this man who was shaking and said, come here. So he followed him and he brought him to the place that the Prophet used to pray. This is his little nook. And he was allowed to pray there by himself. And when that group left, he was left there still praying. And when the Ustad's group came, and the Ustad said, I've been here year after year, month after month, nobody has called me to come here. This man prayed there by himself and
Wow.
spent all of that time. So that was truly, truly a miracle. And the Ustad said, this man must have, you know, he's a righteous man. He must have done really good things to deserve this. Because nobody gets this, right? Nobody gets this. And so that was truly, truly a miracle.
I get a goosebump.
Yeah.
Wow, I envy him. I would love to get his spot. It's not easy, man.
Exactly,
And you know, if
exactly,
you could pray at Rauda, it's huge. Wow, that is an
exactly.
experience. Alhamdulillah. He must be Allah really give him a berkat kan, barakah for him to actually be there and special lah. That is special invitation, Mike. That is a special, not just an invitation, but a special invitation. Mashallah.
Exactly,
That is
exactly.
Wow.
beautiful.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. I'm so blown away by all these stories. It shows that in life, be a good human being, be nice, be kind to others. We may not be
Exactly.
able to see the result of it immediately in front of our eyes, but you know, everything goes around, comes around, and
For
sometimes
sure.
miracles like that pop out, and good on
Exactly.
for that guy, good on. And I pray that Azip and Fatia, both of you too, somewhere down in the future, you would have that opportunity as well.
Um,
Azip, just really quickly, I am seeing a few questions that has been posted over at the chat box, and I know that we are a little bit short in time, like around 7 minutes left. So I thought I want to go on to one of our LinkedIn users right here who asked, uh, what were some of the biggest challenges that confronted you during your Umrah, and how did you handle it? And from your biggest challenge, Azib, I will allude to the next question, and that is from the big challenge, what are some of your sweetest and fondest memories when you were performing the Umrah? So it's like a yin and yang question. So go ahead, Azib, go ahead. And then I'll pass it back
yes.
to Fatia. Go ahead.
Actually, there were no major challenges. We pray every day for God to make it easy for us.
Yeah.
That's one of the typical prayers that anyone would say is, Rabbi Asir wa la tu'asir Kareem. Rabbi, oh Lord, make it easy for us, don't make it difficult. So everybody recites this all the time, and that's our aim. We just want to make it easy, and thanks to the Lord, it was very easy. Everything came into place. Everything was fine. The only physical challenge was it's very dry there, right? So your skin gets cracked up, and especially the soles of your feet, because we're walking in slippers and inside the mosque bare feet most of the times. So the soles of our feet get cracked, and it's quite painful.
Yeah,
So
it
we
is.
went to a pharmacy nearby. We got a special cream, and both my son and I kind of experienced this. My wife had socks, and it was a little bit better for that. So that was it's a tiny challenge. It was nothing so show stopping. Nothing was show stopping. One of the challenges I had, and this was the first few days I was there, Mike, is a challenge of kind of containing myself, right? Because all of us have demons, and all of us have characteristics that we don't like within ourselves. And one of the things that we want to build in ourselves is patience. Sabar, we call it. Right? In Malay, we call it sabar. In Arabic, it's also sabr. And patience is a tough, a tough commodity, man, because your fuse is short, and I can handle many things that happen to me. If somebody touches my children or my wife, and they're gonna get it from me. So one of the sellers in one of the shops took
Yeah.
offense to something that my wife did. She didn't do anything. Actually, he was kind of playing with her. He said, "Oh, this one or that one, this one or that one," and finally she got fed up and she just turned around and left. And he
Right.
took offense to that, and he was saying things. And as I was walking out, I heard him say, it was bahalul, I think. So bahalul punya orang. And these guys can speak Malay, can speak Indonesian, can speak tens of languages. They're all polyglots because they meet so many people, right? So he said bahalul. And I could not, my sabar was gone. I turned around, I faced him, I actually pushed him. So I said, men know this rules of engagement, right? So if a man comes to you to your face and he pushes you, you know something's going to happen after that. And he knew that. So he calmed down quickly and he said, "Oh, this is the city of the Prophet." Suddenly he's being so nice and being so religious. Before that, he was using nasty words, right? So now he's saying it's the city of the Prophet. We can't be fighting. I said, "Okay, thank you for saying that. But if you offend my wife one more time, I'm going to slap you." So I felt bad for doing that because I'm in the city of the Prophet. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have. I need to train myself to not get physical and not get threatening like that. But unfortunately, that's one of the challenges I face. Alhamdulillah, it was early on in the journey. I think God put that test in front of me because of that, because many things happened after that, which I was so cool. I'm like, God put it here. I'm cool. I'm patient. But that was, I think, the second or third day we were there, and I just lost it. Thankfully, he didn't escalate, because if he had escalated and I escalated, it could have gotten ugly. You never know. I could have ended up in jail, perhaps. These are all things that could have happened, and thankfully didn't happen. So that was the challenge.
Look at that. What a story. There you go. Thank you, Azip, for being so vulnerable, for sharing that with us. We are all human beings, but I'm glad, perhaps that could be a test as well. Yeah.
If I may call out Faisal's
Yeah.
message here. So somebody smiled to him. And my wife, there was one time we were just walking, doing the tawaf inside the mosque. So you can do the tawaf anywhere surrounding the Kaaba. Obviously, if you're close by, it's only a few tens of meters to go around the house, right? To go around the queue. But outside the mosque or inside the mosque on the second floor, I actually tracked it with my Garmin. It's about 800 meters for one circuit. So you need to do 7 of those. So it's roughly about 5-6 kilometers to do 7 circuits. So as we were walking there, this man, I don't know where he was from, he gave me such a beautiful smile. And sometimes when somebody smiles at you, it feels great, right? Every time somebody smiles, it feels great. But this guy's smile was earth shaking, it was like, ooh. And my wife saw it and she commented that, she said, "This was the most beautiful smile I've ever seen in my life," she said. She said, "This is the most pure smile," she said. It was the most pure. There was no hidden agenda, nothing. She commented that I was speechless. I couldn't say anything. But she saw it, and the smile wasn't intended for her, right? It was intended for me. And I felt that direct to my heart. But she was an observer, so she could see it. And she said, "This smile was the most pure I have ever seen in my life," she said. It was without prejudice, without intention, without hidden meaning. And throughout the day we were just, and even till today we still talk about it, because it was just something that simple, Mike, that all of us have within us. We can smile to people, but many of us don't do it. Can be so powerful. So that's just amazing.
Thank you so much.
I know you're a busy man, Mike, but it is great for me. I can spend a bit more time if people still have questions, Fatia. I'm happy to spend perhaps another 15, 20, 30 minutes if we have the time to do this.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Azip. So Azip just said that he's able to spend more time with us. So get up close and personal. I mean, hearing stories of a potential fight that may have broken up, over there, these are stories that are real, but it's also stories that help us to reflect, right? Like when we're in the Holy Land, we become conscious of those evil characters of ours, and perhaps it was a sign of the divine to bring it up so that we realize it, so that we're able to tame it, so that we know that there's this flaw in us, that we are able to manage it. So I think it's beautiful, Azif, of how you did it. Back to you, Fatia. Go ahead.
Yeah, I still wanna hear Azif's story of fasting in the land of in the Holy Land.
Right. Number one, it's amazing, lah. And Mike, you know that the night before we do these special prayers, Tarawih prayers. Tarawih only happens in the month of Ramadan, so it's very special to us. Outside of the month of Ramadan, we don't. There's no such prayers. We cannot do those prayers. So it's very special. So I managed to get three Tarawih done there. And over there, they say 10 raka'ats or 10 uh, chapters, I suppose, of the prayer. Here we do typically 8 or 20, plus 3 of the final prayers we call witr. So there it's 8 plus 3, so it's 11 rakat altogether. 10 plus 3, so it's 13. Here it's typically 8 plus 3, so it's 11. And these sheikhs who lead prayers in the haram, to the devoted, these guys are rock stars lah. They're the equivalent of Grammy Award singers because they have the best voices, they have the best diction, they have the best recitation. So the recitation of the imams of the haram, of Masjid al-Haram, are shared, are treasured globally. There's 1.7 billion Muslims, and we know these sheikhs. We hear a word from them, we know it's Sheikh Sudais. And the first night I was there, guess who was reading the prayers? Sheikh Sudais. I mean, it was totally amazing. And the thing is, over there, they still, even here, we do the sighting of the moon, right? But, in recent memory, I can't even remember a time where the sighting of the moon didn't coincide with the calendar that's already printed, because we actually know already lah. We know which day the moon is going to come out, right? But over there, they actually still go to the desert and look out and they see. And we didn't know if it's going to be Ramadan until after Maghrib prayers. So tomorrow, whether we're going to fast tomorrow or not, we didn't know until after Maghrib. So after Maghrib, they made the announcement that we knew. So we stayed in the mosque for the Isha prayers, followed by the Tarawih. And Sheikh Sudais was there. So what I did was, because I treasure this recitation so much, I take out my phone, I put on my voice recorder, and I put it down and I recorded the entire thing. And after that, this gentleman comes, who's praying next to me, asks me where you're from. So I have a little bit of Arabic, smattering. So I could tell he's asking me where I'm from. I said, I'm from Malaysia. And he goes, oh, thank the Lord that you're here and all that. He said, sorry to impose, he said, but you really don't need to, I didn't know it at the time. He said, you don't need to record. So he said, you're using an iPhone, let me airdrop something to you. So this is totally stranger, right? I know this guy wants to airdrop. Okay, we airdrop. So what he did was he airdropped an app that I have on my phone now that has the recitations of every night of Ramadan on the app. So a couple of hours after the prayer, it's live already there. So I now can listen to, it's called Tilawah Al-Haramain. So the tilawah, the recitations of both holy mosques. So from Medina and Makkah, it's here on my app. So whatever night you want, I'll give it to you later, Fatia. You can get the recitation. I don't have to record it on my phone. So this man was such a blessing, he just took the time out to do that. Another time, my son is very mildly autistic, very mild. Typically, people can't even notice it. But sometimes when he gets excited or he gets too tired, there's challenges that he faces. And one time in the Prophet's mosque, he was, I guess, too excited. So he's moving around a lot. He plays with his hands and he can't sit still. So after the prayers, it's huge, I guess he was Arabic, much bigger beard than me, came up to me, put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, thank the Lord for our family, thank you for your son. It just breaks me up. And he said, he didn't even have to ask. He said something to the effect that, excuse me. She said, your son will be in paradise and he'll be calling you there. So it's just, it's just totally amazing. The way people are so, it's sometimes we get lost in ourselves but the ability to share just a few kind words to other people could really just, impact people in such a huge way. So yeah, that to me that was a miracle. That was just a miracle story from Medina.
Yeah. Yeah. We felt it too. I mean, upon hearing your story, there's so much love. Sometimes we get so cooked up with the modern world, chasing
Right.
targets and whatnot, that in the end of the day, it's why are we doing all this, right? Happiness. Do we see happiness in the future, or do we see happiness now and appreciating and be grateful with whatever we have now? I feel it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Azip, for being so strong and for sharing that I feel these vibes, this energy of love and gratitude that you're sharing with us now, even with me of a different faith, but I respect all faith, I embrace all faith. I feel it. Thank you. Thank you. Right,
Thanks,
Fatia?
man. One of the things that I truly noticed, I mentioned that we noticed that there were people from all over the world, and one of the things that came to me like as a flashback was the movie Malcolm X. I don't know if you watched that, Mike. So Malcolm X, he was a black Muslim at that time, right, in the 60s, which was kind of not too much in the mainstream of Islam. They had their own kind of ways of doing things. But what turned it around for him was going on his pilgrimage to the Hajj. And he said, I mean, he had a race agenda, right? He had beef against the white people because the white people were, doing all of these things to the black people of America. So that was central to his dogma.
Yeah.
But when he went there, he said, people with the bluest of eyes and the blondest of hair would stand shoulder to shoulder and sit together, eat in a plate with the blackest of black men. He said there's no racism. There's abolished racism in Islam because of that. And there's no such thing as race. There's no such thing because we are all from him. We're all from the Lord. And that came to me because we saw people of every color, of every creed, of every type, of every race there, and everyone converges for the same purpose. And that's just super powerful.
Thank you, Azib. Powerful, right? Fatia, would you have anything else you'd like to ask? And also for our audience who are still tuning in with us right now, if you have any questions, please do drop it over at the chat box so that we'll be able to see it. I think before we go on to Fatia, just a few more notes that I'd like to read out. Azib, number one, there is an advice from one of our audience right here. Do not get up close to camels or drink camel milk if you are taken for a visit to a camel farm during your Umrah. This is because of the risk of contracting MERS-CoV. We ended up at Hospital Sungai Buloh for 2 days for testing and observation after we experienced some symptoms after our return to Malaysia. So please don't take the risk. Thank you for that reminder. Excellent.
Yeah, that's really good advice. We actually didn't manage to get to a camel farm. my son wanted to. He said, hey, why aren't you seeing any camels? We saw camels from the bus, obviously, but not up close. Obviously, this is why. Hopefully, it's better for us not to have been up close and personal with the camels. So very quickly, Mike, one of the things I wanted to do is kind of give an overview of somebody who's never been there.
Sure.
On what the trip is. Because I told you Umrah is actually only a couple of hours long. That's it.
Right.
But when we say we're going on our Umrah, it typically takes 2 weeks, 13, 14 days, including the flight and all of that, travel time. And what I did was we flew in directly to Medina. Medina International Airport is very close to the city. So from Medina International Airport, you take a short bus ride to your hotel. And we were staying at the roof, which is like a row behind the rows of hotel directly adjacent to the mosque. So it's very close. It's like not even a 5-minute walk. It's a very pleasant walk. And from the hotel, we couldn't go into the mosque, because we arrived at like 9 or 10. Then we were given a meal. I tell you, the food there was fantastic, lah, Mike. We would eat. We would eat and eat and eat because the food was really good and the hotel was really nice. We had an international buffet,
Nice.
and 3 times a day, anything you want to eat is there. And then by the time we had finished all of that, and then they had representatives from the telcos actually in the lobby, so you could buy your SIM card, they set up your phone for you, install your apps because you needed that Tawakalna app. It's like My Sejahtera. And then we couldn't get into the mosque because of COVID, there are limitations of hours to access. Before, it was obviously 24 hours a day lah. So now after like 11, 12, they shut down the mosque, so we couldn't get in. So that we spent a total of 5 days there. And Medina, like I said, it's called Medina Al-Munawwarah because it is a place of peace and calm, and you could really feel it. So once you get into the city, although I almost got into a fight there, it is much calmer than Makkah. Makkah is bustling, Makkah is buzzing, but Medina has that aura of quiet and peace. And the Prophet's mosque, like, I cannot overstate the importance of the Prophet's mosque because that is the seat of everything that we have today.
That's right.
Like I keep repeating, 1.7 billion Muslims today would not be here if it wasn't for that. It was at that time a mud, floored hut. But we are standing in exactly that same spot where that mud floored hut existed, where he used to sleep and where he used to pray and where the first congregation was held. So it's totally surreal to be walking in those same corridors, and there's these pillars and there's names of the pillars, and you can trace back those pillars. This is the pillar of Aisha, the wife of the Prophet. This is the pillar of Tawbah, where the Prophet used to make Tawbah. So they could actually trace those things. And because the mosque is so big now, it has encompassed, gardens and fields and houses of the companions of the Prophet. So when you walk around it, and especially when you walk around with somebody with a vast amount of knowledge, he can just point out to this spot. He said, this used to be where so-and-so used to live. This should be where this companion used to preach. And there's several historical mosques just outside the main complex. And then one of the days we would make a ziarah outside of the mosque. We all get on the bus. And they take us to like battlegrounds, Mike. And one of the most touching and meaningful to me was a place called Uhud, the Mount of Uhud, where the Battle of Uhud occurred. So the Battle of Uhud is where the people from Makkah were idol worshippers, right? They were atheists, so they prayed on whatever. And what they were most angry about with the Prophet was that he disrupted their society. They're very based, they're very structured society. It's a very tribal and structured family-based society. And when the Prophet came and said there's one God only, and you can pray directly to the God, you don't have to pray to your priest, or you don't have to pray to a shaman or whatever, it really disrupted their whole worldview. And they couldn't take it. They didn't want it. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. So after 10 years of preaching in Makkah, the command from God was given for the Prophet Muhammad to move to Medina. So he made the trek. It was a perilous journey. Many things happened along the way. It was very difficult. And we went to some of those places. There was a cave that he hid in. And when we read the books and we hear our ustaz here in Malaysia, we say, oh, there was a hill and he hid up the cave. That's nothing than standing at the foot of it's like a mountain, right? It was way up there. And he climbed that when he was 52. He was 53. It's meaningful for me too, because I'm 53 now. And he climbed that when he was 53 years old with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and the two of them climbed up there, and they hid there for 3 days. It was a small cave where you couldn't even stand up. We could have made the trek there, but it would have taken us 3-4 hours, so we didn't go up. But our ustad actually made the trek, so he went up there 4 hours to get up there. But to stand on those same rocks that he went up is mind-blowing. So one of the stories was that how they managed to survive was the daughter of Abu Bakr. Her name was Asma. She was 8 months pregnant, right? And she carried 2 big bags of food for her father and the Prophet. And she would climb, mind blowing to me. I wouldn't have made it up that hill right now
Yeah.
in my position, but a pregnant woman going up
Yeah.
because people were hunting for them and wanted to kill them, right? So they had to send her because she was unassuming. People wouldn't assume that she would be
Yeah.
climbing up
An
the
eight
hill.
months pregnant lady.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we did, and we traveled, and the Battle of Uhud is where they put together an army from Makkah to attack Medina. So what they did was the Prophet and his companions marched out of Medina to save the city, and they met at this battleground called Uhud. And I stood on this hill, Mike, where the Prophet commanded 50 archers to stand on the hill to control the battlefield. And the archers at that time is equivalent to our snipers. Like, okay, when you have
Yes.
snipers at a high point, you control the battlefield. So one of his commands was, you do not come down from this hill. Even in one of the narrations related, even if you see crows biting at our dead bodies, you don't come down from this hill. But what happened was 50 of them were up the hill, and they were outnumbered 3-1. But it seemed like the enemy was retreating. So they left. And, you know, in those times when you leave the battlefield, you leave also your swords and your armor and your weapons, and those are the spoils of war, right? So some of the archers on top of the hill were like, hey, they're collecting the spoils of war, and we're up on this hill, we're not going to get any of it. I'm going to go down there quickly and collect some. So 40 of those archers actually left the hill and left 10 people up there. And when the enemy saw that there was not many archers on the hill, they flanked them and basically killed all of them. So 70 companions were slain during this battle. Basically, it was a loss. We consider it a loss, but they didn't march into Medina. They turned back after that. So they saved the city because, you know, this is not our times now, right? This is in the olden days. If you lost and the
Yeah.
enemy enters your house, that's it. They sell your daughters, they rape your wives, and that's it. The end of you. So there was no losing. So they held their ground as best as they could. And 70, companions were slain, but the enemy went back to Makkah. So they saved the city and they saved their families there. So just standing on the exact hill, Mike, I was on the Archer's Hill.
Yeah.
Me and my son were just sitting there blown away. Was just an experience that is totally, totally priceless. And I had never experienced that in my backpack Umrah all this while. I never had the time. I went in and went out, so I didn't go to all of these journeys. And I'm so grateful that I managed to go, especially with Habib, who's telling us the story in such an emotional way, in such a powerful way, that it was as if we were there in the battle. So it's amazing.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Azip, for sharing that. I think for this experience, because you've had the chance to spend it with your family, but more so with your son, I can imagine you reiterating these stories again to him at that time, him being at the site itself. That in itself is an experience. Yeah.
Exactly. I like to relate when I saw excellent marketing, Mike. So at the foot of the hill of Thor, where the prophet hid, there's like a small place under a tree, and there's carpets where we can gather and chat. So the ustaz was giving us a lecture there. They brought a portable mic, was telling the stories from there. And outside, there's these men and boys selling these souvenir books. We know they're overpriced, and we know the pictures, you can get them anywhere, probably for cheaper. But they're pushing it and pushing it. But there was one man who stood by the side of the ustaz who's standing in front of all of us. There's like 70 of us sitting down on the carpet, and he's standing there. And this is outside on the rocks. And he's just standing just by the side. So if you imagine if there's a stage, there was no stage, obviously, but he's standing by the side in the wings. As soon as the ustaz said, okay, that's it, let's get back on the bus, he rushes to the ustaz and says, yeah, ustaz, here's my book. Can you promote it for me? Right? So the ustaz turned around and said, hey, listen, this good man is standing here selling 10 riyals one book, 20 riyals for 2 books. So he actually made test promotion for this man, and we all bought from him. So there's 10 other guys selling books, but everybody bought from this guy who took the opportunity and knew the influencer in the room and got the influencer to make a pitch for him. Amazing, totally amazing.
Wow, that's strategy over there.
That's strategy, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Aziph, I'm all good. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Fatia, back to you. Would you have any more questions for Aziph?
No, I think I don't have any more questions. I mean, but Azif, thank you for sharing. You make me my mind actually. You bring me back to to Mecca, where I went there 5 years ago. It was different back then. There's still there are two
The raised platform.
the raised platform. Yeah, so I do my umrah both on the ground and the raised platform, but now the platform was not there anymore. So I do pray that I had an opportunity to visit soon, because I really wanted to go. And thank you for sharing your stories. It's very mind blowing and heart wrenching. Also, there's a lot of moments where it really touched our hearts. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for the opportunity, and I pray that all of us who's listening that eventually get our invitation to visit again, and may this Ramadan be one of the best for all of us, inshallah. So thank you so much, Michael and Azif, for being here. And yeah, back to you, Azif. Last words for you before we end the program, maybe.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. So for people who want to go, especially via travel agents, there's a lot out there. First thing, you need to check whether they're licensed, obviously, because unfortunately, Mike, they have been scammed. So people
Right.
have lost money. It's so unfortunate and so sad, but people have lost money. So make sure that the travel agent you choose is licensed. If they have enough experience doing this, they have a track record, they have testimonials, they have videos online, or you can check. So because I did all of these checks, but I based mine really on recommendations, because as we all know, that's the best type of promotion. If somebody really recommends, I would highly recommend the travel agent that I use. They call Wira Saujana. They're very well organized, very professional. They have people on the ground there every step of the way. My son lost one of the lenses of his glasses. So I never occurred to me that somebody would. I just asked, where can I find an optometrist? Where can I find an eyeglass shop? And one of the ustaz said, "Don't worry, meet me in the lobby. I'll take you there." So he went out of his way, out of his busy schedule. He brought me to a shop, and we got a very nice new pair of glasses for him. So it was a great souvenir from Makkah for my son to have a new pair of glasses. But again,
Nice.
it just goes to the extent they really go above and beyond, and all of them are knowledgeable. All of them know the rituals. They know how to guide you, and they know the shops. They speak the language. So you need to find a company that can do that for you. Prices obviously vary, but really, Mike, it's about distance, because the closest to the masjid are the most expensive.
Yeah.
These location, right?
Of course, yes.
Or we had to walk probably not even 100 meters. It was very close, but it was quite hectic because it was like the main thoroughfare for people to come and go from the mosque. So it was quite busy, but even then it was fantastic, I think. And so I pray that whoever wants to go, gets the invitation. And just open up your heart. It's nothing scary about it. It is totally positive, and you will come back really a changed person, inshallah, from that trip. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Mike and Fatia, for hosting me on my show. And to all the audience, I really appreciate all of your questions and your comments. And if there's any other questions, please continue to put it in the comment section. I will go back and answer it if I can. If you're on YouTube, sorry I couldn't really see your questions, if there are any questions on YouTube. But you can always connect with me on my social media, either on YouTube or Instagram or LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So with that, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Aziph. Thank you, Fatia. So we would draw our session to a close. Salam bulan Ramadan. Happy fasting. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
See you.